So let's add our email text field here. Okay, to facilitate our lives again is I'm going to create yet another composable here. Composable. Call this fun. Call this email input as such. Our email input here, I'm going to pass a few parameters. So the first one is going to be modifier, of course. I've seen this many times. Let's pass this modifier to say it's optional. I don't have to worry about it if nothing is passed. And then I'm going to pass the email state. Next, let's pass the email state, which is going to be the actual text that we're adding inside of this text field. Okay, which means this has to be a certain type. It's going to be yes, immutable state type of string. That's what's going to be expecting. Okay, the next thing we need to pass here is going to be the label ID. This is going to be the label of our text field. In this case, just going to be email. And then I'm going to say enabled. It's going to be a boolean, and we're going to start off with true. And IME action. I'm going to pass an IME action. In this case, we just want the button at the bottom of the keyboard to say I am action. There's done, next, default, and so forth. We just want next. Okay, you can change that. So we're structuring our input field. How is it going to respond? How is it going to respond when the keyboard comes up? All right, so on action, when something happened, here we're going to pass a keyboard. Say keyboard actions. Such. I'm going to set that to keyboard actions default. So just use the default keyboard actions that the system provides. Okay, so next here, I'm actually going to call yet another composable that will construct the actual field. Okay, there's a reason why we do this. Okay, so I'm going to say input field, which we haven't created. Go ahead and create this composable. There we go. So this input field is going to be called inside of email input, which is going to be called somewhere around here. All right. So what is that we want to happen in input field? Well, the input field would probably have pretty similar values or parameters, or in this case, from our email input, right? Extract this. I'm going to say modifier again. Pass in modifier. Now I'm going to pass the value state, right? Same thing, that state we looked at earlier. It's going to be a mutable state type of string, right? And then label ID again. It's going to be a string, and enabled. Make it boolean. It's going to be, and then I'm going to pass another special field here. It is single line because I want to make sure that text field here can allow more than one line in case we want more information from the user. So it's just going to be a boolean, and to begin with, I'm going to say true. I want this just to be one line. Okay. Of course, the keyboard type here, I'm going to want actually just going to say I want this to be keyboard text. Different kind of keyboards. Okay. And IME actions, I'm going to say just want the IME action next, just like what we had before. On action, keyboard actions, I'm going to say keyboard actions, I want default. Now here is where I'm going to actually create the text fields. So what I want is I'm going to create an outline text field like that. Now we're using what composable gives us. Okay. So outline text field, in this case, our value here, I'm going to put the value state, that value, right? And on change, I'm going to pass, in this case, I'm going to pass a lambda, and I'm going to say value state, that value, I'm going to set that to IT, which is going to be the value we're getting from our value state, right? So when things change, we are passing here these changes, so we can take that change and add it to our value state. So what this is really is whatever is written inside of our text field. All right, so now we're constructing our outline text field through the parameters or the fields that we are passing through this input field, which of course is going to be passed along from our email input. I understand there is a tree of calling different composable, but this is good because then we can separate the concerns. All right, so let's continue here constructing our outline text field. We're now creating this outline there, okay? For the label, we need to pass, of course, a lambda. It's going to be a text, and I'm going to pass the label ID that we're going to be passing down when we invoke the input field. I'm going to single line. What do I want to happen? I'm going to just pass is single line, which is going to be the decision we have created here. So if we say it is false, then it's not going to be a single line. I'm going to pass a text. Actually, let's see. Let's pass a text style for the entire field. Okay, I'm going to say text style. I'm going to add font, about 18 SP. Let's import SP as such. And then let's give a color. I'm going to use material, theme.colors, and I'm going to say on background as such. So it's going to take the color that is necessary to show this text depending on the background that we've set up for our application. And next I'm going to pass the modifier. Just pass the modifier we're going to be passing through. And I'm going to say dot padding. I'm going to add a bottom padding here of about 10 dp. Again, this is just making this look good. That's all we're doing here, so nothing really special. Start, I'm going to give about 10 dp, and end also about 10 dp. And then I want to make sure that fill max width. Okay, I'm going to continue. I'm going to add enabled. Just pass the enabled property or argument, and then keyboard options, option as such, and actually I'm going to pass inside of the constructor there. The keyboard type is going to be keyboard type that we're passing here, which is going to be just text, right? And then the IME action is going to be our IME action we set out to be when we're constructing our input field. So for our keyboard action, we're just going to go ahead and pass what we're saying here, keyboard actions default. That can be changed, of course, but we're just going to have a default one. So now you see our input field, which has been called inside of our email input, which is going to be called somewhere here, so we can actually show something. Now it requires all of those fields, right? All those parameters or arguments, which is going to be the modifier we're passing along. And then I'm going to pass the email state. Let's say email state, which is going to be equal to email state that we're passing along here. Value state, as it's called. There we go. And say label ID. I'm going to say label ID. Enabled. Passing enabled. Keyboard type. Going to be keyboard email. Let's say keyboard, let's say email because this requires an email. Okay. IME actions. I'm going to say IME actions of force on action. I'm going to pass on action. There we go. Okay, so now we have our input field. Now our email input is going to go here. I'm going to say email input. I'm going to pass the state. The state, of course, is going to be this guy there. I'm going to pass email. Enabled. I'm going to pass true for now. We'll change later. On action, here I'm going to pass the keyboard actions. And what I want to do is I'm going to say password focus request. That request focus like this. This means when we say done or something, it's going to go ahead and focus on the next field we're going to create, which is going to be the password. Well, let's see if we can see something in our preview here. All right, you can see there is our nice preview here. We have our email field showing. All right, so we're making real good progress. And before we move forward, let me refactor some of the code here. So we know that, let's see. Right, this should be email input. Right, there we go. Thank you. And of course, this should be email with capital E, like that, because remember, whenever we're creating composables, we need to follow this rule, which is this shows that these functions are composable functions. They're not just normal functions. That's why it has to start with uppercase E. So let's refactor a few things here, because all of these classes, or all of these composables, I should say, they shouldn't just be here inside of this reader login, because we may want to use that at some point, right? So I'm going to cut all of these guys, and then I'm going to go to our components like this. I'm going to just add them there. Okay, so now whoever wants them can go ahead and use them. I'm going to go ahead and import, import our email input, and we should still be good, hopefully. Let me go ahead and refresh this, see if we can still see our email text field. Okay, all is good, and we should be good for now. So next, we're going to add the password. Again, I know that this may seem cumbersome, but setting things up like this will really give us the opportunity to extend our application and reuse some of this code, which is what we want to be able to do and compose anyway.